He made his pregnant wife. Apologized to Mistress, she filed divorce and won big. They say marriage is built on trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. But what happens when those foundations crack beneath the weight of secrets and deception? Meet Cassandra Evans, a gentle soul who believed she had found her forever in James Peterson. Little did she know that her husband was leading a double life with a woman who reveled in breaking hearts. Miranda Brooks. In the final act of betrayal, James demanded that his pregnant wife apologize to his mistress. The fallout was nothing short of catastrophic. This is the story of how Cassandra found the strength to fight back and won bigger than anyone ever imagined. Cassandra Evans grew up in the warm embrace of a loving family in the sleepy town of Willow Grove, with a population under 10,000. Willow Grove was the kind of place where everyone seemed to know one another's business. Yet despite the occasional nosiness of her neighbors, Cassandra always found solace in the community's kindness. They rallied together in times of need, celebrated life's milestones, and believed wholeheartedly in the sanctity of marriage. Raised by her parents, Douglas and Eleanor Evans, local hardware store owners, Cassandra learned the value of empathy, hard work, and loyalty. She was the oldest of 3 siblings, with younger twin brothers, Marcus and Mason. While the boys busied themselves with sports and pranks, Cassandra immersed herself in books. She grew to appreciate the power of words and the delicate complexities of human emotion. At the age of 20, eager to expand her horizons, she left Willow Grove for the bustling city of Greenfield. She had gained admission to a reputable university on an academic scholarship, majoring in communications. Bright-eyed and hopeful, Cassandra juggled part-time work at a local cafe to make ends meet. Those years were both liberating and challenging, but she never once forgot her roots, nor did she lose sight of her dream to build a stable family of her own, one that mirrored the love and respect she witnessed between her parents. It was around this time that she met James Peterson. He was 3 years older, working in a junior executive position at a real estate firm. Her friend Laura Kim, who studied business with him, introduced them during a university charity gala. James seemed by all accounts like a catch. He was polished, carried himself with an air of confidence, and had a polite charm that easily won people over. His conversation with Cassandra that evening glided effortlessly from topic to topic: art, travel, family, dreams. Over the next few months, they discovered shared values. Both wanted to start families someday, both admired strong family ties, and both dreamed of stable futures, unblemished by the heartbreak they had each witnessed in other people's relationships. Their romantic courtship was peppered with thoughtful dates, musicals at the local theater weekend, picnics by the lake, and cozy evenings spent cooking simple dinners in Cassandra's humble off-campus apartment. After 2 years of dating, James proposed in the most romantic of ways, kneeling on the same lake shore where they often picnicked. He had a ring fashioned with a small diamond surrounded by tiny emeralds, Cassandra's birthstone. Tears of joy wet her cheeks as she said, yes. Their marriage, held in her hometown of Willow Grove, was a modest but heartfelt ceremony. Surrounded by close friends and family, they exchanged vows that promised unwavering devotion. For the first 5 years, it truly was bliss. James's career soared. He transferred from junior positions to managerial ones, often traveling to meet clients for the real estate company, Midtown Realty Group. Cassandra advanced in her own line of work as well. Initially, she took an internship at a local broadcasting station, eventually working her way up to become a content editor for a lifestyle website. Financially, they were stable, even thriving. They bought a small but cozy condo near James's office building, Cassandra's parents, now aging, visited occasionally proud of the life their daughter had built. The couple discussed starting a family, yet had waited for the right time due to busy work schedules and James's constant business trips. Unbeknownst to Cassandra, cracks began to form beneath the pristine surface of their marriage. James was charming and doted on her, but he had a weakness for recognition and the thrill of new conquests. With success came temptation parties with big names in real estate, mingling with ambitious newcomers to the industry, and the comfort of hotel bars after long days of negotiations. James's travel schedule provided ample opportunity for indiscretions. At first, the changes were subtle. James worked longer hours, returned from trips seemingly distant, carried his phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. Then, the once thoughtful gestures like calling her at midday to say he loved her dwindled to near extinction. Still, Cassandra believed in the man she married. She chalked it up to stress at work, telling herself they would return to the love-laced days of old, once life slowed down. Everything shifted drastically when Cassandra, after quietly suspecting she might be pregnant, took an at-home test that came out positive. Elated, she awaited James's return from a weekend trip, imagining how she would surprise him with the news. She planned it meticulously, a candlelit dinner at home, soft music playing, and a little onesie with the words, "Hello, Daddy," embroidered on it, which she'd place at the center of the table. She imagined his joyous tears the promise of a new chapter, bringing them closer than ever. But life seldom goes according to plan, and this seemingly perfect couple had no idea that a storm was about to upend their entire world. James's flight from Chicago arrived late that Sunday evening. It was nearly 10 when Cassandra heard the keys jingling at the condo door. She hurried to greet him, brimming with excitement. They had texted intermittently during the day, but James had seemed distracted. He shrugged it off as last-minute meeting requirements and flight delays. He stepped inside, looking worn but handsome in his crisp navy suit. Cassandra noticed a faint perfume on him that she didn't recognize. For a moment, her heart gave a tiny lurch of concern. She pushed it aside. People could brush up against others in crowded airports, or maybe the flight attendant's perfume lingered. She told herself there had to be a reasonable explanation. On the dining table, the candles flickered softly, illuminating a modest spread of homemade pasta and salad. The little onesie was neatly placed in a small gift box in front of James's plate. Even through her simmering questions, Cassandra's excitement overshadowed her suspicions. "I have a surprise for you," she said. Guiding him to the table, James's face lit up a fraction. "This is nice," he murmured, taking in the scene. Yet something about his demeanor was off-tense. He loosened his tie and forced a tired smile. When he opened the box, he stared at the tiny garment. For a split second, Cassandra thought she saw a flash of panic in his eyes before his expression softened into a grin. "You're pregnant?" he asked, voice laced with disbelief. Cassandra nodded, tears sparkling. "I found out yesterday. I wanted to tell you in a special way." He stepped forward, drew her into a half-hearted hug, and whispered, "That's wonderful news." But Cassandra sensed some hesitation in his tone, as if his mind was elsewhere. In the days that followed, James's behavior became increasingly erratic. One moment he was doting, offering to bring her herbal teas or reading through parenting books with genuine curiosity. The next he was glued to his phone, texting or calling at odd hours, walking into different rooms for privacy. Cassandra felt a prickly sense of unease every time she caught him lying about mundane details like where he had lunch or why he had come home an hour later than he claimed. She tried to dismiss her worries. After all, she was pregnant now, and stress was the last thing she needed. But the seeds of suspicion had already been planted, and they began to grow nourished by each small lie or evasion. To clear her mind, Cassandra confided in her close friend and former college roommate, Laura Kim. Over coffee at a trendy cafe, Cassandra explained how James's mood, swings, and secrecy were getting under her skin. Laura listened intently, stirring her latte, her expression growing more concerned. "Sometimes he'll go to the balcony to talk," Cassandra said, her voice trembling slightly. "And when I walk into the room, he hangs up immediately, or switches apps on his phone. I don't want to be that wife who snoops, but I can't shake the feeling." Laura pursed her lips, leaning in closer so others wouldn't overhear. "Look, Cassie, you have to trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. That doesn't mean you confront him with accusations right away, but you should keep your eyes open." Cassandra thanked her friend for the advice, but remained torn. A part of her wanted proof before making any allegations. Another part wanted to believe James was simply stressed. After all, the real estate market had been volatile lately, and a baby on the way was a huge life change. Yet the more she observed his habits, the less convinced she became of his innocence. One evening, she quietly approached the bedroom door while James was on a call. She overheard him speaking in hushed tones. "I told you I'd handle it. She doesn't suspect anything serious." "Not yet. Just keep calm." Those words cut through her like a knife. Who was he speaking to in such a secretive manner? And what exactly was he handling? Unable to sleep, Cassandra lay awake, pondering every possible scenario. Was it a business deal gone wrong, a personal debt he hadn't mentioned, or her heart pounded at the thought, was there another woman? Her worries intensified when small clues began to surface. A lipstick stain on a shirt collar, a hotel room key for a night. He supposedly stayed at a colleague's condo. Text messages that he claimed were from his boss, yet were written in a flirtatious tone. The pregnancy, once a beacon of hope, now felt overshadowed by a looming black cloud of betrayal. Before she jumped to conclusions, Cassandra decided she needed actual evidence. She borrowed an old phone from Laura and discreetly installed a simple GPS tracker app on James's phone, a step that felt utterly invasive, but also necessary for her own peace of mind. She rationalized her choice by telling herself that if she found nothing, then she would breathe a sigh of relief and never speak of it again. However, the day after installing the tracker, Cassandra watched in dismay as James's location pinged at a fancy downtown hotel at 9 in the evening on a night he claimed he'd be working late at the office. Her heart sank like a stone. She wanted to call him immediately, but her hands shook too much to hold the phone steady. Desperate for answers, she found herself scrolling through social media. A new account under the name Miranda Brooks popped up as a suggested friend. The account's profile picture was a sultry shot of a woman with caramel brown hair and a striking gaze. She listed her workplace as freelance real estate consultant. Cassandra clicked only to discover an array of glamorous photos featuring expensive dinners, business trips, and a certain recurring man in the background, James Peterson. The puzzle pieces began to fit. The late-night phone calls, the odd perfume, the suspicious texting. James was having an affair, and this Miranda Brooks was likely the other woman. Overwhelmed Cassandra found tears rolling down her cheeks. She placed a hand protectively over her belly, feeling the life growing inside her. How could the man she loved betray her like this, especially now of all times? 2 days after discovering the damning GPS location and Miranda's social media profile, Cassandra gathered her courage to confront James. She arranged a quiet dinner at home, hoping privacy would allow them to speak freely. However, James walked in that evening with a flurry of excuses. He claimed last-minute emails demanded his immediate attention, forcing him to shut himself in the study. Cassandra gave him space, but her anger simmered. She looked at the half-cooked dinner on the stove. Her appetite gone. After an hour of waiting, she marched into the study where James hunched over his laptop, frowning at the screen as though it held the world's problems. He glanced up. Startled. "Cass, I'm really busy." "Can it wait?" Her response was surprisingly calm. "No, it can't. We need to talk." Her voice must have betrayed her turmoil, because James set his laptop aside. "Is everything okay?" Cassandra crossed her arms. "Does the name Miranda Brooks mean anything to you?" James blinked his face, momentarily devoid of expression. Then a flicker of recognition passed through his eyes. "She's a consultant we've worked with on a few real estate deals." Why, heart-pounding, Cassandra kept her gaze locked on his. "I saw her social media photos. You're in quite a few of them, looking more than just business associates." His jaw set in a rigid line. "You've been snooping." "Yes, I have," she replied, her voice trembling. "When my husband comes home with suspicious perfume on him, disappears to questionable locations and lies about it, I feel justified. I'm pregnant, James, and I deserve the truth." He rose from the chair, exhaling slowly. "Okay, I won't lie to you anymore. Miranda and I have been seeing each other." Hearing the confirmation out loud felt like a punch to her stomach. Cassandra leaned against the desk for support, tears brimming. How could you do this? How long James had the decency to look ashamed? It started about 6 months ago. We got close during some out-of-town conferences. Cassandra stared at him in disbelief. 6 months ago meant he'd been cheating on her for nearly half a year, all while they were discussing starting a family. "Is she the reason you've been distant? The reason you keep lying to me?" He nodded, his voice stilted. "But it's complicated. I love you, Cassandra. I really do." In a surge of heartbreak-fueled rage, she hurled the nearest object, a pen holder, across the room. "Don't you dare say you love me after what you've done. I'm carrying your baby, James. A baby you swore you wanted as much as I did." A tortured expression twisted his features. "I never wanted to hurt you or this child. It just happened, and I got in over my head." Cassandra wiped away angry tears. "Affairs don't just happen. You made a choice. Multiple choices every day. Do you have any idea what you've put me through?" James tried to approach her, but she stepped back. "Stay away from me. I can't even look at you right now." He let out a heavy breath. "So, what now? Do you want a divorce?" Her mind spun with possibilities. Divorce, separation, or perhaps therapy. She had always believed marriage vows were sacred, but she never expected to be betrayed so profoundly. "I don't know," she whispered. "I need time to think." The next few days were a haze. Cassandra took some time off work, citing pregnancy-related stress, which was only half a lie. She holed up at Laura's apartment for a while, confiding in her friend between sobbing fits. Meanwhile, James slept at their condo alone, calling her repeatedly, texting apologies, promising he'd end it with Miranda. The heartbreak wasn't just emotional, but physical too. Cassandra's appetite waned, and she struggled to keep food down. She worried about the baby. At a routine checkup, her doctor advised her to manage her stress levels, warning that elevated anxiety could affect her pregnancy. It was the wake-up call she needed, determined to protect her child. Cassandra returned to the condo, telling James that if they had any chance of salvaging their marriage, he'd have to cut all ties with Miranda. Immediately, James promised he would. He even handed over his phone to show that he had deleted Miranda's number and blocked her on all social platforms. Despite the betrayal, a small part of Cassandra wanted to believe him. This was her husband, the father of her unborn child. Could they possibly rebuild? For a moment, it seemed plausible. James accompanied her to prenatal checkups, talking about future nursery decorations, and even reading a parenting book before bed. Cassandra's heart softened, if only slightly. Maybe they could move past this. Then Miranda Brooks reappeared in their lives, like a tempest refusing to be tamed. She texted James, emailing him relentlessly, claiming that he couldn't just throw her away after everything Cassandra found out when she intercepted an email that popped up on James's phone at breakfast. The subject line read, "You owe me furious." Cassandra confronted James again. "What is this?" she demanded, brandishing the phone. James rubbed his temples. "She's not taking no for an answer. I'm not responding. I swear I'm not." A series of expletive-laden messages from Miranda followed, each more threatening than the last. She hinted at exposing James's infidelity to business associates, turning up at their condo, and even confronting Cassandra directly. James tried to reason with Miranda, but each attempt only fueled her anger. What Cassandra didn't know was that Miranda had her own set of motives, beyond romance motives, that would soon culminate in a bizarre demand. An apology from Cassandra. To her it started as a single text. "Your wife owes me an apology." Sent in the middle of the night, it displayed on James's phone with a jarring insistence. He read it, staring at the screen in disbelief. Cassandra, disturbed by the phone's glow, rolled over. "What is it now?" she asked wearily. He showed her the text. "She's lost it," he muttered. "She says you owe her an apology." Cassandra sat up, outraged. What on earth could I possibly owe her an apology for? Over the next few days, the messages from Miranda became a flood, mixing threats with bizarre pleas for redemption. In her twisted worldview, she blamed Cassandra for standing in the way of her happiness with James. She claimed that Cassandra's refusal to divorce James was unfair, considering he was never truly faithful. Miranda's brand of logic was as toxic as it was baffling. She was the mistress, yet she positioned herself as a victim. One evening, James arrived home, visibly shaken. He shut the door, checking behind him, as though someone might be following. Cassandra stood in the kitchen, finishing a cup of tea. "What happened?" she asked. Miranda showed up at my office. He said, his voice trembling. "She caused a huge scene, screaming about how I'd promised her a future." My boss heard everything. It was humiliating, to say the least. Cassandra felt a strange combination of anger and pity. "She's unhinged," she declared, placing her cup on the counter. "We need to consider legal protection, like a restraining order." James shook his head. "I don't want to escalate matters. I just want her out of our lives." It was the very next day that Miranda showed up at their condo. Despite the security guards' best efforts to keep her out, Cassandra opened the door to find Miranda standing there, posture, rigid eyes ablaze. She wore a tight-fitting red dress and reeked of desperation. "I need to talk to James." "Miranda!" snapped, trying to push past Cassandra. Cassandra blocked the doorway. "He's not here. And even if he were, you're not welcome." Miranda's lips curled into a sneer. "So this is the wife," she said, looking Cassandra up and down. "I thought you'd be prettier." Normally such a dig would have rolled off Cassandra's back, but in her vulnerable state, it stung. "You need to leave," she repeated firmly. Adrenaline surging as Miranda's eyes flickered toward Cassandra's pregnant belly. A strange, almost feral expression crossed her face. Carrying James's baby doesn't make you special. I could have given him children, better ones than you ever could. Before Cassandra could retort, Laura, who had come over to check on her friend, suddenly appeared in the foyer. "Leave or I'm calling the police." Laura said sharply. With a final glare, Miranda turned on her heel and stormed off. Cassandra's heart pounded as she locked the door. She felt an odd mix of relief and terror. It was clear that Miranda was dangerously fixated, and there was no telling what she might do next. However, the darkest twist was yet to come. That evening, James paced the living room phone, in hand pale as a ghost. Cassandra, exhausted, was about to head to bed when James blocked her path. "Miranda threatened to accuse me of harassment. If I don't comply with her demand," he said quietly. She wants you to apologize to her publicly." Cassandra's breath caught in her throat. "She wants me, the pregnant wife, to apologize to her, the mistress." He nodded, eyes full of panic. "She said she'll go to the media, claim I manipulated her, or worse, she could cost me my job. I could lose everything, Cass." A flare of anger lit Cassandra's features. "What about what I lose? My dignity, my self-respect." James reached for her shoulders. "I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just telling you what she said. She's threatening to make false allegations. Lawsuits. She's even hinted at going after you, saying you've slandered her by calling her unhinged." Cassandra's entire body trembled. "So to be clear, you're considering forcing your pregnant wife to apologize publicly to your mistress just to save your skin." James dropped his gaze. "I don't know what to do. My boss is already furious at the office scene," she caused. "If she brings more drama, I'm finished." Silence engulfed the room. Cassandra stared at him, feeling her heart shatter all over again. She realized in that moment that James's love for her was overshadowed by his fear of losing his job, his reputation, and his precious status. She spoke through gritted teeth. "You've put me through hell, James. Now you have the nerve to ask me to degrade myself to protect you from the consequences of your own actions." James looked torn. "If we don't do something, she's going to ruin us both. Maybe we can fake it. Just something small. A statement that might placate her." Cassandra locked her jaw. "Absolutely not." Yet the threats escalated over the next week. Miranda sent emails not just to James, but also to Cassandra's workplace claiming defamation. She posted cryptic messages on social media hinting at a real estate scandal that would blow up soon. James's boss called him into a meeting, warning him to get his personal matters under control, or else face termination. Faced with the very real possibility of financial and social ruin, James made a choice that would forever change Cassandra's view of him. He cornered her in the bedroom one evening, voice trembling with desperation. "You need to apologize to her," he said, eyes wild. "Just a short statement online, or maybe in person. We'll record it and send it to her. That's what she wants." Cassandra stared at him in horror. "You can't be serious. How dare you even suggest? I know it sounds insane, but I can't lose my job. We have a baby on the way. Think about our future." "Our future." Cassandra repeated, her tone incredulous. "There is no future if you force me into this." Her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. James gripped her hands. "Please just do it for me." For us against every instinct in her body. Cassandra agreed to a single meeting with Miranda, hoping she could reason with her. But reason proved futile in the face of a woman who saw only her own entitlement. And so the stage was set for the most humiliating act of Cassandra's life. The meeting took place in a small, upscale cafe on the outskirts of town. The choice was Miranda's, who insisted on privacy away from the city centre. Cassandra could hardly contain her resentment as she arrived with James, each step feeling like a march toward her own mortification. Inside, Miranda was already seated at a corner table, a smug expression etched across her delicate features. She wore a sleek black dress hair styled immaculately, as though she were preparing for a magazine photo shoot. The sight of her made Cassandra's stomach churn. James pulled out a chair for Cassandra, but she refused his gesture and sat down stiffly. "Let's get this over with," Cassandra said, crossing her arms protectively over her belly. Miranda smiled, though her eyes were cold. "How sweet of you to join me." "Cassandra," she drawled, "I've been looking forward to our little chat." Cassandra bit back a retort. She could sense James's tension, and her own heart was pounding. She remembered the doctor's warning about stress. But she had no choice. This confrontation was inevitable. "So you want an apology?" Cassandra began, her voice brittle. "For what exactly?" Miranda leaned forward, playing with the straw in her iced latte. "Where do I start?" "For starters, for your husband's lies, blaming me for a situation he created, and for trying to paint me as some crazed stalker," James attempted to intervene. "Miranda, you know that." She cut him off with an elegant wave of her hand. "I'm speaking to Cassandra." Cassandra's anger flared. "You pursued a married man. You threatened me, insulted me, and now you're demanding I apologize for ruining your fantasy." Miranda shrugged. "James, and I shared something real. You, on the other hand, are clinging to a marriage that was never solid to begin with. If you'd just step aside gracefully, none of this would be necessary." Trembling with rage, Cassandra fixed Miranda with a steely gaze. "You're delusional. James is my husband, and I'm pregnant with his child. It's not me who needs to step aside." Miranda's lips curled into a predatory smile. "A child he never even told me about. He kept so many secrets. And that's your fault. You caged him." Cassandra felt as if she were conversing with a brick wall. "I'm done. This is nonsense." She began to rise from her seat, but James grabbed her arm, desperation flickering in his eyes. "Please, Cass." She froze, tears threatening. She realized that James was truly forcing her to bend to Miranda's will for the sake of damage control. In a moment of excruciating humiliation, Cassandra sank back into the chair. "Fine. If this is what you need to move on," she said, her voice trembling with suppressed fury. "I'll say I'm sorry for whatever you feel I've done to you." Miranda's eyebrows shot up. She pulled out her phone. "I want it recorded." James swallowed hard, shooting Cassandra a pleading look. She shut her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. Then, with Miranda's phone camera aimed at her, she spoke words that tasted of ash. "Miranda, I apologize for any part I played in making you feel unappreciated or wronged. I'm sorry if I ever judged you unfairly." It was a hollow statement, but Miranda's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. She stopped recording and placed the phone back into her purse. Now was that so hard? Cassandra stood abruptly, tears trailing down her cheeks. "I hope you're satisfied." Miranda gave a casual shrug. "We'll see if I decide this apology is enough. Maybe I won't escalate things." James turned to Miranda, voice strained. "Please let this be the end of it. You have your apology. Don't make things worse for everyone." Miranda smirked. "I'll consider it." As Cassandra stormed out, the world outside felt both surreal and suffocating. Anger and betrayal pulsed through her veins. How had it come to this? She had gone from a loving wife excited about her first child, to a broken woman compelled to apologize to her husband's mistress. Upon reaching the sidewalk, she leaned against a lamppost, tears blurring her vision. Laura, who had been waiting in a nearby car for moral support, rushed over. "Oh my God, Cass, are you okay?" Cassandra shook her head, sobs escaping her. "I did it, Laura. I actually apologized to that." That Laura enveloped her in a hug. "You did what you felt you had to." James caught up to them, his face etched with guilt. "Cassandra, wait." But she spun around, fury blazing through her tears. "Don't you dare speak to me right now. I hope you realize what you've done." With that, she ducked into Laura's car, and they drove off, leaving James standing helpless on the curb. Cassandra tried to compose herself, but inside, she knew this marriage, the marriage she once cherished, was irreparably shattered. The night after the forced apology, Cassandra slept fitfully. Each time she closed her eyes, she relived the moment in that cafe. Miranda's smug smile, James's silent acquiescence. She woke the next morning feeling drained and hollow, as though the baby inside her was the only thing tethering her to reality. That day, she made a decision she never thought she would. She reached out to a divorce attorney. Her name was Penelope Morris, an old acquaintance of Cassandra's father. Douglas, Penelope had a reputation for being tough, compassionate, and relentless in defending her clients, precisely the ally Cassandra needed. Penelope agreed to meet Cassandra at her office. Sitting in a minimalist waiting area lined with law textbooks, Cassandra clutched a folder containing evidence screenshots of Miranda's threatening messages, emails she had sent to Cassandra's workplace, and logs from the GPS tracker showing James's suspicious hotel visits. When Penelope entered, her presence was instantly calming. She was an older woman in a smart navy suit, silver hair swept into a neat chignon. After introductions, they settled in her office. Cassandra inhaled shakily. "I never imagined I'd be here. But I can't live like this anymore." Penelope folded her hands on the desk. "I understand. Why don't you start from the beginning? Tell me everything." Cassandra poured out her story, how she and James met the affair, the pregnancy, Miranda's demands, and ultimately the humiliating apology. Penelope listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. "I won't sugarcoat this," Penelope said once Cassandra finished. "Divorce can be messy, especially when finances, potential reputational damage, and a child are involved. But from what you've told me, you have a solid case for significant damages. Emotional distress, potential defamation from the mistress, and a betrayal from James that led to a toxic situation." Cassandra felt a flicker of hope. "I just want to protect my baby and get out of this nightmare." Penelope nodded. "We can petition for full custody once the baby is born, or at least primary custody, with a robust support arrangement. But we'll need to gather more documentation, income statements, financial records, anything that can help us clarify your entitlement." The next hurdle was telling James. When Cassandra returned to the condo later that evening, her resolve hardened. She found James in the living room, fiddling with his phone. He looked up, relief washing over his features. "Where were you?" "I've been worried." She placed her bag down calmly. "I went to see a lawyer." "James." His eyes widened. "A lawyer? Yes, I'm filing for divorce." Those words hung in the air like a thunderclap. James's face paled. "Cassandra. Wait, it doesn't have to come to that?" She held up a hand. "It does. You made me apologize to your mistress, James. That's not just a betrayal. It's cruelty." He lunged forward, desperation in his eyes. "I told you. I was desperate. I was afraid of losing my job, everything I've worked for. I never wanted things to go this far. Cassandra's voice cracked. You never wanted it to go this far, yet you let it. You cheated on me while I was pregnant, lied to me for months, and then forced me to grovel before your mistress. You call that love? He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I don't know what to say. I've messed up. I know I did. I'll do anything to fix this. Her jaw clenched. It's too late. I need to put myself and this baby first. She turned to leave. James scrambled up, following her into the bedroom. Cass, please. We can go to counseling. I'll quit my job if that's what it takes. Her throat tightened. For a brief, fleeting second, she recalled the good times, the shared dreams, the laughter, the love that once shimmered between them. But the memory of Miranda's triumphant smirk and James's willingness to degrade her overpowered any nostalgic longing. There's no going back from what you've done, she murmured, gathering a few essential items into a suitcase. I'm going to stay at Laura's place until the divorce is finalized. If you have any respect left for me, don't fight me on this. James looked shattered, tears forming in his eyes. But Cassandra steeled herself. She couldn't afford to let sentimentality cloud her judgment. With one last glance, she walked out the door, leaving James alone in the home that once symbolized their love. A new chapter had begun for Cassandra, though she entered it heavy with sorrow and anger. Every part of her heart ached, but a glimmer of liberation coursed through her veins. By taking control of her fate, she was honoring not just herself, but also the life growing inside her. Little did she know that fortune was about to favor her in ways neither she nor James could have anticipated. Over the following weeks, Cassandra threw herself wholeheartedly into building her case. Under Penelope Morris's guidance, she documented every harmful incident, the forced apology screenshots of Miranda's threats, evidence of James's ongoing infidelity, and financial records showing his ability to pay substantial spousal support. Simultaneously, Penelope prepared an airtight argument for full custody of the unborn child. While typically custody wasn't settled before birth, Penelope wanted it on record that Cassandra intended to safeguard her child from a toxic environment. It was unconventional but necessary, given the extent of James's betrayal and Miranda's disruptive presence. James, after being served divorce papers, responded with a mixture of panic and remorse. His own attorney attempted to negotiate a settlement out of court, but Cassandra, fueled by righteous anger and the need to protect her future, refused any half measures. One afternoon, James called her voice trembling. "Look, I'll agree to almost anything, Cassandra, but please don't drag me through the mud, publicly. I'm already at risk of losing my position at Midtown Realty." Cassandra gripped the phone, her belly now significantly round. "You should have considered the consequences before forcing me to apologize to your mistress, James. I'm done protecting your image." A part of her felt guilty. She had once loved this man deeply, but she reminded herself of all the nights she cried alone, all the humiliations, all the fear for her unborn child. She steeled her resolve. The first hearing took place in a nondescript family courthouse in downtown Greenfield. Cassandra, dressed in a simple black maternity dress, clutched a folder of documents. Penelope stood beside her, exuding quiet confidence. James arrived in a tailored suit, looking 10 years older than he had just a few weeks ago. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, and he kept glancing nervously around the corridor. Miranda, somewhat surprisingly, also appeared in the hallway, though she lacked standing in the official proceedings. She hovered near James, occasionally whispering in his ear. Cassandra caught fragments of her comments, snide remarks about Cassandra's pregnancy, about how unfairly she was treating James. When the judge finally appeared, everyone filed into the small courtroom. Cassandra felt her heart hammer against her ribcage. Though no formal custody orders would be issued until after the baby's birth, they could establish preliminary arrangements and glean the judge's stance on spousal support and property division. Penelope presented Cassandra's case systematically. She highlighted the marriage's breakdown due to James's infidelity, his reckless actions that subjected Cassandra to emotional distress, and the various documented threats from Miranda. She emphasized Cassandra's pregnancy, her need for financial and emotional stability, and the intangible damage done by forcing Cassandra to publicly apologize to a mistress. James's attorney tried to mitigate the damage. He argued that James's affair, while regrettable, didn't negate his rights to co-parent. He insisted that James had the means and the willingness to provide for the child should Cassandra be willing to share custody. The judge, an older man with wire-rimmed glasses, listened impassively. However, when Penelope produced screenshots of Miranda's messages, including her demands and threats, the judge's expression turned grim. "I need more time to review this evidence," he said, glancing at James. "But I take these allegations of coercion and harassment very seriously, particularly given the emotional duress Mrs. Peterson faced during pregnancy. This will weigh heavily in my decisions regarding spousal support and custody arrangements." Outside the courtroom, tension crackled like static in the air. Miranda glared at Cassandra with open disdain, while James hovered uncertainly, torn between loyalty to his mistress and regret for losing his wife. Cassandra wanted nothing more than to escape the toxic atmosphere. Over the next few weeks, negotiations continued. James's attorney floated various settlement offers, ranging from generous spousal support to property buyouts. It was clear that James was desperate to avoid a drawn-out legal fiasco. His reputation at Midtown Realty was already precarious, and a public scandal could end his career altogether. Meanwhile, Cassandra soldiered on through her pregnancy. She leaned heavily on Laura and her family for emotional support. Douglas and Eleanor Evans, her parents, visited from Willow Grove, offering encouragement and practical help in setting up a nursery wherever she might eventually settle. As her due date inched closer, Cassandra sensed James's anxiety peak. He called her again, voice laced with desperation. "Cass, can we meet? Without lawyers, just to talk." After consulting with Penelope, Cassandra agreed to a meeting at a neutral location, a small conference room in Penelope's law firm. Though their lawyers would be nearby, she and James were allowed to speak alone if they wished. When she arrived, James was already there. Pacing, Miranda was conspicuously absent. The moment Cassandra stepped in, he rushed to pull out a chair for her. She eyed him warily, sinking into the seat. "What is it?" He sighed heavily, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I want to settle this. I'll give you whatever you ask for. The condo, spousal support, child support. Just don't take away my right to see our child." Emotions tangled in Cassandra's chest. She remembered how he once read baby books with excitement in his eyes. She couldn't deny that beneath his betrayal, he might still love the unborn child. "I won't deny you visitation rights, unless the court deems it necessary," she said quietly. "But don't expect me to trust you overnight. This is about our baby's well-being." James nodded, seeming genuinely contrite. "I'll do whatever it takes." A few days later, the attorneys finalized a proposed settlement. Cassandra would receive primary physical custody once the baby was born, with James granted supervised visitation, at first due to concerns about Miranda's interference. James would pay substantial spousal support for a defined period, plus child support. The condo would be sold, and proceeds split, but Cassandra had the option to request a larger share given her circumstances. Penelope, though skeptical of James's sincerity, advised Cassandra that the offer was strong. They could likely secure even more if the case went to trial. But it would drag on. Ultimately, Cassandra decided to accept choosing stability and closure over prolonged litigation. What followed next, however, was nothing short of poetic justice. A wave of karma destined to crash upon James and Miranda in spectacular fashion. Just days after the settlement was drawn up, Cassandra received a sudden frantic call from Laura. "Have you seen the news?" Laura asked, voice trembling with excitement and shock. Cassandra, who had just finished a prenatal checkup, frowned. "What news?" "Miranda's in trouble." "Big trouble," Laura declared. "Check the local business headlines." Cassandra quickly pulled out her phone, her heart pounding. The top article read, "Real estate consultant Miranda Brooks arrested for fraud." She scanned the article, eyes widening at every word Miranda had been forging, client signatures and pocketing funds from phony real estate deals for months. A sting operation had finally brought her to justice. A swirl of emotions coursed through Cassandra, relief, surprise, and an odd sense of validation melded together. She remembered the countless threats Miranda had flung her way, the smugness she exuded while demanding an apology. Now it seemed Miranda's own wrongdoing had caught up to her. Later that evening, James called his voice hoarse and panicked. "Cass Miranda's been arrested. The company is launching an internal investigation. They're pulling me in for questioning about our relationship. They think I might be involved." Though Cassandra was no fan of James's predicament, she felt a certain catharsis in hearing the fear in his voice. "Are you involved?" she asked quietly, half dreading his answer. "No," he said quickly, "but they found emails where she discussed deals with me. I'm not sure how they'll interpret them. This could end my career." Cassandra gripped her phone. "I'm sorry for you, but this is not my battle anymore." Her mind flashed back to all the times James dismissed her concerns or put her in humiliating positions. Now he was dealing with the fallout of trusting someone so morally bankrupt. In the days that followed, James was temporarily suspended from Midtown Realty, pending a full investigation. Miranda, meanwhile, faced serious criminal charges. Local news outlets covered the story, extensively relishing the scandal that rocked the real estate world. As for Cassandra, she focused on her health and well-being, letting Penelope handle any residual legal matters. The baby's due date was fast approaching, and she found solace in the unwavering support of her family and friends. When Cassandra finally went into labor nearly 3 weeks ahead of schedule, she rushed to Greenfield Hospital, her parents and Laura by her side. Amid contractions and the flurry of nurses, she couldn't help but wonder if James would show up. He did. Disheveled pale, and clearly stressed, he arrived in the waiting room, only to find Laura glaring at him. "Don't you dare cause her any stress right now," Laura warned. James nodded, his eyes filled with desperation. "I'm just here to see my child." After an arduous 15-hour labor, Cassandra gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Tears of joy replaced the months of sorrow as she held the tiny infant in her arms. She named her Sophia, Grace Evans, choosing to give her child Cassandra's maiden name for the time being, an act symbolic of her independence from James. James, permitted by Cassandra, entered the room briefly to meet his daughter. Tears filled his eyes as he cradled Sophia, dwarfed by blankets. Cassandra watched from the hospital bed, emotions warring within her. She saw the genuine love in his eyes for his child, but she couldn't ignore the pain he had inflicted. Once Sophia was stable and Cassandra was resting, James pulled up a chair, hesitant. "She's beautiful," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You did amazing, Cass." Cassandra offered a small nod, exhaustion evident on her face. "She is beautiful. She's the one good thing to come out of all this." He stared at the floor. I just want you to know, I'm sorry, so sorry. For everything." She didn't respond. What was there to say? She couldn't rewrite the past, nor could she absolve him of the choices he made. But for Sophia's sake, she hoped they could at least reach a place of civil coexistence. Not long after James faced further fallout at Midtown Realty, though the internal investigation cleared him of direct involvement in Miranda's fraud, his superiors viewed his relationship with her as a liability. They offered him a severance package to quietly resign. James's professional reputation took a devastating hit, making it difficult to secure another high-level position in the same industry. Cassandra, on the other hand, found a new momentum in her career. As her story quietly circulated through her network, she received an offer from a reputable online publication seeking a content editor. Her experiences lent her a deeper empathy, a newfound resilience that came through in her work. A few months later, at the final divorce hearing, the judge reviewed the updated circumstances. James had lost his high-paying job, but he still owed Cassandra the settlement agreed upon: spousal support, child support, and a share of the condo's proceeds. With Miranda's crimes and her humiliating demands now public record, the judge showed little sympathy for James. Cassandra walked out of that courtroom with full legal custody of Sophia, generous financial compensation, and the knowledge that she had stood up for herself, despite all odds. James, meanwhile, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered ambitions. Gone were the days of unbridled career success. Gone was the image of a perfect marriage. He had reaped the consequences of his choices. The sweet note of karma played in Cassandra's ears as she stepped into the sunlight with her lawyer at her side, baby Sophia safe with her grandparents. She inhaled deeply, an overwhelming sense of relief and triumph washing over her. Though her heart still bore the scars of betrayal, Cassandra was free from the secrets, the lies, and the toxic demands of a mistress with a twisted agenda. She had faced hell and walked out with her dignity, her future and her child's security intact. Cassandra's journey isn't just a story of betrayal, but a testament to the strength we discover when life hits us hardest. She endured the shock of infidelity, the humiliation of a forced apology, and the heartbreak of leaving the man she once loved. Yet through faith in herself and the love for her child, she claimed a better life, one marked by independence, healing, and a heart wide open to hope. If you found Cassandra's story gripping, if it stirred your emotions, made you root for her triumph, or reminded you of the power we each hold to reclaim our destiny, please show your support. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more real-life drama stories and powerful tales of perseverance. Together, let's continue to shine a light on the resilience that emerges when we confront adversity head-on. Your engagement helps ensure that stories like Cassandra's can inspire others to rise above.